Hey, what's going on? Banks here. Just wanted to do a quick little video of the rolling delta and rolling volume that I've mentioned a handful of times in the chat. I really wanted to clean up the chart for you guys. I had a couple things that were coming in, other tools that I use to execute charts I'm sorry, execute trades. And I really just wanted to post a clean delta chart in the way that I trade it. So a couple things on this chart. We have two things that Baba uses as well. So these would be the seller 100, 200, 300, and I'll kind of go through the colors, and then the large trade indicator as well. So the seller 100, just the way I have them colored, I have them going lightest to darkest. So this would be a seller 100, seller 200, and actually I switched it to orange to kind of highlight those for a seller 300. Same way on the buy side, I have a buyer 100, buyer 200, and a buyer 300. The way I have my chart book set up is I have it set up on a 15-second interval for the candles. I really use 15 second just because I really like the way that the candles print for the 100, 200, 300. And then I also use the large trade indicator. So basically, and I think Baba does a video on both of these, but that is any single lot order at market for anything over 19. So you can kind of see where these buyers, sellers are kind of getting into these positions. And then the rolling delta that I've mentioned a handful of times, I kind of just wanted to go through, show you an example. Maybe we'll do like a 30 seconds or something so you can kind of see it build live. So I'm not just showing you these examples, but so I have it set up to where all of Globex is in one period. So basically, I have a volume and a delta for that. So the way that I use this kind of coming into the market is I'll go in, look at the volume profile for, just the overnight session, and then I'll also look at the delta for that session as well. So if you're looking at this, you can see, and I apologize, it's all squished together, but you can see, there's an HVN that's very prevalent in this zone. So I kind of box that out going into pre-market. And then once I get into the delta, it's just kind of noticing, anything that kind of highlights to me. So, you got, some buyers that are stuck at these highs, you got some sellers at the lows. But really coming into the market, and I think Baba mentioned this on chat, is you had a bunch of single lot buyers that came in all at one time. You had a 42, 20, 27, 19, 30. So there's a bunch of interest in this area. So the way that I would view this is, you basically have your backstop in this trade, and this is for that trend day on Friday the 27th that I'm talking about. And you can see basically we pull back very briefly into this range. We basically back test these buyers. They step on the pedal. You see that we have, some, strong candles that are coming out here on the buy side. And then basically the way that this prints is every 30 minutes during RTH, it rolls. So the way that I use this on, a normal basis would be you can do it in flow. There's a couple different ways. You can do it in flow, like as it builds, and we'll kind of walk through this. This is the trade that I took here, and we can kind of walk through that, briefly, and then basically like I guess the look back, if you want to say that. So like basically, if once you get through this 30 minutes, what is untested in this that kind of makes up this area? So if you notice, like we break above these highs, we have a bunch of positive delta that's in here. We have the HVN that's here, but we really don't backtest that until this part later in the day. And really, those are the trades that I love taking these kind of trades, especially with some sort of like delta in, delta out, like we have here, where you're back testing where trends started. Strong buyers should be there, and this is really like the first test of this area, and you really want to see these buyers step up. Typically, when you don't see the buyers step up in that area of trend start, you'll see this profile get cleaned up, back through OR, to, lower, lows down here. So just to show an example, we'll kind of go through a little chart replay, and I'm going to actually fast forward it. So let's replay chart. Let's go from like 10 minutes into the open, and we'll do it on a 7 or 8 speed. Let's go 7, and we'll play it. So I just really want you to see, this will be in fast forward. So obviously we can kind of see it building out here. You can see this building out and see how it builds in this range. And I know if you guys were on chat on Friday, you can tell this area for the sellers was really tough. We were putting in a lot of negative delta in here. We were putting in a lot of positive delta in here, but you can see how it churns. So with every candle, obviously this is changing. But what was interesting is that these sellers were really not churning. These buyers were churning a little bit in here, but we were kind of stuck between these two areas, and obviously that's where you get that chop area. So you can see we push up, and I'll kind of show you where I took my trade. So I'll slow it down right here. So you can see we push up, make these highs. And, obviously we're in that trend kind of momentum type of day that we were kind of talking about. And really the first pullback into this area was where I got long. So this is where I got long. We had, sellers into this area. We had buyers kind of step up. An A+ setup to me in this would be this delta in and then a delta out candle, 100, 200 kind of in this area. But that was basically my first trade on Friday, where I could have taken the OR breakout, the long entry here. I kind of waited until we had that true break of these highs and kind of a back test of these buyers here. And if you notice, we'll really speed this up just to see it kind of build. And I really want to get to that, kind of that first point of sell-off where we kind of come in here. And you can see like how this negative delta comes in. and just the way that it builds. So like the way that I would use these are, basically just tools. I mean, you see, sellers are starting to step in here. You have a buyer at the high. You have a seller that comes in here. You have a strong buy into the highs, delta out here. But really these sellers that are being put in this area are kind of holding, this area up a little bit. You're selling at these lows, and until you get that true break of these lows, and I believe right here is a period change, but we also have news. So if you notice, all of this is very thin in delta, but also on the profile. Typically, these areas get cleaned up just like a normal daily profile would. But it's interesting because, this is kind of the area of the buyers where this started. You have a little bit at 108 to 105 area, but we also had a 105 level that Flary mentioned. So if we play this area, I'll slow it down just a little bit. You do get that push into this area, and really, if you were trying to short this, your true test of this short would be, well, first off, if we don't make a new swing high, which we did, but really like this kind of build. You would want to see sellers, and that's why I never usually take the first push. I usually take that reoffer push because I want to see the sellers, initiate off this area. So as you see it build, we make a new swing high, and I'll speed this up because there's a nice build on today in this like 40 to 50 area on the sell delta. And you can see that, we really didn't get a lot of, stuck buyers. Like if you're talking inflow on this 30 minutes, you really didn't get a lot of stuck sellers here at the lows. You didn't get, truly a lot of stuck buyers. Maybe potentially 60 to 56 in this area. So if you were trading inflow, you would want to see this area hold, at least on first test. But like another area that I look at is like how these HVNs, build. Typically you don't want to lose this HVN. If you lose this, you're typically going to rotate down to this HVN here. So as you see this kind of building out, you see these sellers that keep stepping in the same area, in this area right here. And these buyers that are just a little bit higher. And this actually would have been a really good short. You have a strong buy into the highs with, delta coming out on these. So really in this area, you really want to see the sellers hold. and basically you want to hold this LVN on the high side with a short through. And really, the target on this is kind of where we boxed out from the get-go, is this area down here, which is kind of that first test of those buyers. It would be a new swing low on this as well. But just look and see all this negative delta that's churning right here, that's coming in this area. So if you were short, the first test of this area that I would want to be shorting, I necessarily wouldn't be short here. You could, and you really just wouldn't want to be above like 74, 76, in my opinion. But this area right here with like a quick pushback to like 72 to 64. And that's kind of the first like pushback into this area, and you want to see reaction there if you're short. And basically with that, reaction, you want to see that those sellers are still there. And if the sellers are still there, then, what your target is down here in this area. And honestly, I can't remember if this happens, but that would be the first area that I'd want to be short. Like this to me, unless you caught this is a hard area to get short because you do have a lot of negative delta here. And if they get on the other side of this, typically in trend days, you have those hard explosive candles to the upside. So this would be kind of that first test. You have a period change here, which, typically on these period changes, they like to go after, high volume areas. And I think we actually peak the highs a little bit here. So we peak over this high on the HVN, I think up here, and then I believe that we sell off. And really the way that I trade this is it's very subjective. It's kind of a little bit biased on like what your plans are, what your levels are, but this is the type of trade that I would, probably be in on a short side, especially with breaking below these lows. So like right here, I mean, even if you entered here, you still got, 20, 20 points. If you were here, probably 30 points. But I think we actually do kind of break the highs up here. But those are the type of trades that I kind of look for, just areas of interest really, where people have either, stepped on the pedal and have been wrong, or, continuation periods, or, continuation trades. So, really, it can be very subjective when you're looking at volume and delta and kind of the way that you implement it. I've been trading like this for a long time. And to me, I mean, I will take trades off of this, but typically it's with tool confirmations. So like, for instance, like we said, negative delta was kind of here. So that's kind of your line in the sand for these sellers. So, we have green delta in, with strong delta coming out. And basically you want to take out these swing lows. Target on the runners would be kind of where we're looking in these areas down here to see if these buyers are still alive for a trend day push. Like I said, I mean, it's a tool that I use, but I wanted to post a video and kind of show it in motion before you guys look at it and been like, well, yeah, it's easy to say, once you see, well, all this delta's here, it's easy to take that trade. But you can kind of see it build, in this video as well. And I really wanted to just put something out there so you guys could understand it. And if you guys have any questions or anything, about this or the way it sets up or the way that I, trade it, feel free to reach out to me. More than happy to help you with setups or anything along those lines. But I will be posting the chart as well. And if you have questions with any of it, just let me know and I'll see you in the chat. Thanks.